Hi again, everybody, and welcome to this week's Ingles Furman Radio Network preview. It's the final home game of 2024, the Paladins and the Wofford Terriers. Despite what you may hear from other schools, it is the renewal of the Deep South's oldest football rivalry. Hunter Reed says it. I believe it. Good to have you with us. I'm Dan Scott, voice of the Paladins. David Cobb, Tom Van Hoy, and I will have the call for you on Saturday when the Terriers come calling here at Paladin Stadium. Furman coming off of the loss at VMI last week, and really something of a paradox, if you will, because on one hand, the Paladins played, in many aspects, their most complete game of the season, 4 quarters of football on both sides of the ball, and yet it was the turnovers, the mistakes, the points left on the field that ultimately cost the Paladins in the 21-17 loss. So 2-6 overall, 1-3 now in the league with 3 Southern Conference games remaining beginning on Saturday. Wofford is 4-5. They are 2-4 in the league. You remember when these teams got together last year in Spartanburg, Furman was the second-ranked team in the country, and Wofford started a freshman quarterback making his collegiate debut, Amari Odom, and he was able to lead the Terriers to a victory, a game in which Furman made some mistakes there, and it ultimately cost Furman from possibly being the number 2 or 3 seed nationally to the number 7 seed, which had them on the road in that third round of the playoffs at Montana instead of potentially hosting a game here at Paladin Stadium. It happens in football. That's why you take care of business when you have the opportunities. But this Wofford team will come in defensively, especially talking with Paladin's offensive coordinator Justin Roper, a unit that is big, it's strong, it's veteran, they're well coached, they don't make a lot of mistakes. In fact, Roper equated them to some of the Wofford defenses that they ran out there when they had things really flying high in the program a number of years ago. Offensively, maybe not as much, but they have done some things necessary to hang close. They play a lot of close football games, and they've been able to win 4 of those. They are going to do what they can with their freshman quarterback. If he's healthy, he is a dual threat guy. He had been out. He came back against Samford last week, so Paladin's preparing as if Amari Odom is going to play. So he gives them that dual threat dimension, but they'll like to be tough in the running game, and they will max protect and take some shots down the field, throwing up some 50-50 balls, which, as we know, the Paladin secondary has had some issues with here in 2024. When you look at the comparison numbers between the teams, both are middle to lower part of the pack in a number of categories. When you look at their per game averages, neither team runs the ball great. Both teams throw the ball better. The Paladins with the 39th passing offense as far as yardage per game in the country at the FCS level. But scoring is down. Rush defense is down really for both teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. The one place that Wofford does have a significant statistical advantage is in the turnover margin. The Paladins are minus 10 in the turnover battle, and the Terriers are a plus 2. And their secondary has come up with 12 interceptions, linebackers secondary altogether. Where they really stand out, though, is in the red zone. The Terriers defensively in the red zone have allowed 23 scores in 30 opponent opportunities, but of those 23 scores, only 12 touchdowns. And they have made it very difficult on opposing offenses to get into the end zone. And, you know, Furman had plenty of opportunities in the red zone last week at VMI and simply couldn't get the ball in enough times. So we'll see how that matchup plays out from a defensive standpoint. Luke Clark has practiced this week and is expected to play for the Paladins, which will be a nice return for the Furman defense. Talked to Dwayne Vaughn this week. He said if everything goes according to plan, hopes to play him about 50% of the defensive snaps. And, you go back to last week at VMI when Furman's defense was getting off the field. They only played 45 snaps defensively the entire game compared to maybe what we saw against Western Carolina and Chattanooga in the two previous games. Different offenses, I get that, but hoping for a similar type of performance this week. When we look at the league standings, you still have Mercer at the top. They are riding just a golden wave right now. Last week, they scored touchdowns on a fumble return, an interception return, and a punt block. They're sitting at 5-1 in the league. Western Carolina, that was a big win for them a week ago over Chattanooga when both teams were playing without their starting quarterback. Catamounts are 4-1 in the league, 5-4 overall. You figure they have to win out to be able to lay claim to a potential second Southern Conference playoff berth. Chattanooga sitting there at 4-2. They're also 5-4 overall. ETSU 3-2 in the league, 5-4 overall. Then you see Sanford at 2-3, Citadel and Wofford at 2-4, Furman at 1-3, and VMI at 1-4. Looking at this week's schedule, Western Carolina on the road again at ETSU. Mercer will go to VMI, and suddenly the Keydets will be playing with some confidence. Chattanooga at the Citadel. Our game, of course, a 2 o'clock kick with Wofford, and Sanford playing out of conference with Tennessee Tech. So that is a look at your Southern Conference schedule. Again, the kick this week here for Furman and Wofford at Paladin Stadium is 2 p.m. Really encourage you, if possible, to get here, pack the stands, and show some support for these seniors. I know this has been a tough year. It has been an incredibly tough year, but this group has been a part of a lot of success in Furman's program, especially the last two seasons, and they deserve to have your support. So if by any stretch of the imagination you can make it here, we would love to have you. Bring a radio. You can listen to the broadcast in the stadium on our flagship station, 97.7 FM here in Greenville. And, of course, the TV broadcast, for those of you who can't make it, will be available on ESPN Plus. And our radio broadcast will kick off with the Pepsi Countdown to kick at 12:30 p.m. on the Fan Upstate, 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 in Spartanburg, and on the Odyssey app, odyssey.com, and also, of course, Booth Cam. We would love to have you tuned in if you can't make it. Should be a good one. Every time these teams get together, it seems to be a fun, tough, physical matchup, expecting perhaps a low-scoring game. That's what the numbers would suggest. So it'll end up being a shootout, right? Because that's the way these things normally happen. We look forward to having you either in the stadium or joining us on the broadcast for Furman and Wofford on Saturday, final home game of 2024 for Clay Hendricks' Paladins. Thank you for your attention. We will see you again next week on the Ingles Furman Radio Network preview. We'll talk to you Saturday for the game between the Paladins and Wofford. I'm Dan Scott. God bless you, and so long, everybody.